Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another intriguing woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
So hi, I'm Nance Schick. I am the founder of Third Ear Conflict Resolution. We do employment law in New York, and we also resolve workplace disputes globally because, of course, we can do these online. And I've been doing online dispute resolution in some form since I started my firm in 2003. It's been 22 years. And I am the youngest child of three to divorced parents, and I'm a trauma survivor, to put it the most succinctly. And that is really how I found myself in conflict resolution. Is I learned at a very young age that I wanted to contribute to more peaceful environments for people. And that started, of course, at home. But today I work in employment because as I often will say to people, everyone has a job, has had a job, or knows someone with a job. So it gives me a universal language to talk to people. And we do find that most people will relate to their source of income as a way to resolve the various conflicts. Like, those are the ones that are often seem a little bit easier to address, because if you don't, you might lose your income. And what I do is I build their skills in conflict resolution around a workplace dispute. But let's face it, these are the same skills that you can use at home as well. And so it's not unusual for people to come to me and say, hey, you know that thing that you taught me to do with my boss? I tried it with my kids, or I tried it with my spouse, or I tried it with my best friend, somebody I was in some sort of conflict with at home, and they find that those same skills are useful. So I thought it was a great way for me to help people in a way that's authentic to me. And I am a reformed litigator as well, and a litigant. So I've been in the courtroom in a variety of ways, and quite frankly, don't find that that is the most productive way to resolve disputes. It has a time, money, and energy cost that can sometimes be very heavy. So my feeling at this point, especially with some upheaval, as we know, in the United States, that the more we can kind of self-govern and resolve our conflicts in our own lives, the more powerful we are, and then we can put focus in other places when we need it. But if we don't kind of get our own house in order, as some would say, then it's a lot harder for us to do anything outside of that. So that's why I do what I do. I am in a long-term relationship. Took me a long time to get to that point. I carried a lot of my trauma forward and was what some people will call either a poly victim or repeat victim. So it took me decades to work through all that trauma, and I bring that as part of my healing and part of my practice to provide trauma-informed services. So I work a lot currently with the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, which is challenging right now in the United States because of DEI bans at the federal level. And than in some states. So I'm working with a lot of people to navigate that without losing sight of the goals of DEI. Obviously, whenever we're dealing with humans, they will get some things a little screwy. And so what we do is we parse out the parts of DEI that are really the best parts, where we're seeking to elevate each other, give each other opportunities, and try to have more balance in the world. It's a lofty goal. It's not going to happen overnight, but I will take my last breath of probably still furthering these goals of having a more unified world. And I think that probably speaks to you a little bit, Gertrude, because I have watched your TED Talk. I've watched it a few times over the years, and it calls up something in me as well. So it's a real honor to be here with you today. And where I am at this point in my career and how this kind of plays out with why I'm here with you today is I am writing my second book. I wrote my first one. I hope it's okay to kind of show this is my first book. It's DIY Conflict Resolution, which again takes a lot of the techniques that I use in my day-to-day practice and puts it in a form that for the people that can't work with me directly, you have a book that you can use and refer back to as kind of a workbook when you get stuck. So I wrote that one, but now I'm recognizing that there is a need to take these tools specifically into workplaces. I wrote the book originally, the DIY Conflict Resolution, after I was violently assaulted and I was recovering from the head injury and the multiple physical injuries. And I realized that had that head injury been any worse, none of these tools would be out there in the world. Of course, there are some that are similar, and that's wonderful. We need lots of people doing this kind of work, so I have no problem with people out there doing something similar. I don't need to be the only one. If anything, I need millions of you out there doing this. And so that's part of that book. And now I'm working on my second one that's called, tentatively at this point, because it's in progress, it's called Unsustainable: Why Our Workplaces Aren't Working and What to Do About It. And what I'm tackling in that is the kind of paradigm that just isn't working. We know that we're generating a lot of multi-billionaires at this point from the labor of a lot of people who can't even afford their own home, while others have multiple, like, huge homes that they don't even use. And I find that kind of insulting. And more than kind of insulting, I am looking for ways to work new paradigms, because I think most business owners also don't necessarily want to be the next big corporation, don't necessarily want that, multiple homes, yachts, things that they're never going to use. That comes with a lot of responsibility to have a lot of money too. And most of us really just want peaceful lives where we can take care of the people we love, take care of our health. A lot of what we want is pretty basic. And if we can, as Buckminster Fuller said more than 60 years ago, I think, that if we could take the resources that exist at this point in the world and redistribute them, pretty much everybody could be taken care of. And I find that some of this hoarding of wealth and power it's time to wrangle it back in, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to be an easy venture. So that's also why I do what I do. I am, quite frankly, out to change the world for the better. I think we have a lot to work with, and there's a lot of good in the world. I know that from the people surrounding this particular podcast, from your community, the communities that I'm in. I hear it all the time, people wanting to lift each other up. So I'm using what I can to connect people, to be one of those people, and see what we can do to shift some of these paradigms, both in business and in the workplace, and really in our day-to-day lives. So thank you for having me. It's a real thrill to be here with you.
Thank you so much for sharing that part of your story. So let's unpack what has been your journey. You talk about trauma and multiple trauma. Are you comfortable to take us back and give us a bit of that part of your story?
Yeah, at this point, I'm on the other side of my healing, so it's a little bit easier to talk about. But it started with the abandonment from my father, right? That has its own traumatic impact because he was gone from the time I was probably about 18 months old, and then my siblings had difficulties with him being gone. One of my siblings did abuse me for many years. Then one of her friends sexually abused me, and I can see where the difficulties, even with my mom, who's passed on now, and we resolved all of our issues before she died. Um, she did the best she could, but how do you deal with a child who's trying to kill another child when you've given birth to both of them, you love them, right? It's a very difficult situation. So I've healed from that, and it's taken a long time to work through it. But in the years where I was not healed, I repeatedly put myself in positions where I was re-victimized because I didn't value myself.
Mm,
And that's another reason that I talk pretty openly about my experience, because I know there are a lot of people that are in that situation and need to find that healing, but we have more resources, right? We have even this podcast to tell people there are ways you can get through this. There are survivors like me, right? There are survivors all over the place, and there are resources that we didn't have when I was growing up. We have abilities to talk about things, and what we know now about those kinds of abusive family situations is it is in the silence that it gets repeated also. And so that took me forward, right? To unfortunately, when I recognized someone else in my another of my loved ones took the place of me in the abusive cycle. Um, I was, I think, 19, 20 years old. It's been so long ago. I'm 56 now. So it's, in the healing, I don't like to go back and visit too often, right? But
uh,
at the time, I was in college. And when I saw that this was being transferred to someone new because I had found my way of stopping it, it was
mm.
more than I could bear. And my mom had been diagnosed with cancer. I had a lot of, upset around me, and I tried to take my own life. And it
Uh,
was that survival story that shifted because I wasn't allowed to go home without getting counseling. And, my first day of counseling, I'm like, okay, go ahead, fix me, woo, right? I had a little bit of an attitude, but it put me on a different path.
well, it's good that you finally got the help and you went into the world of law and then transitioned. What led you from practicing law to founding the Third Ear Conflict Resolution?
So I am still practicing law,
Okay.
but I am focused, instead of litigating at this point, I'm focused on out of court solutions. And a
Okay.
lot of that had come from my own lawsuit. And I knew going into my law license that this was what I ultimately wanted to do, but I also recognized that I needed experience in the system, right? Because you can't change systems you don't understand, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And right, and so you have to understand how to work within it from lots of different angles to find the places where kind of the holes in the boat are, right? And
Yeah.
then, because look, I understand we've had to have revolution, and those have been very powerful and made big change in the world, but I'm a nonviolent person, so I would like to, see if there's a way that we can make the changes that are necessary in a nonviolent way. And this
Mm.
is where I am currently, is let's see what we can do within systems, around systems, together in community, because we do have an ability to be more connected around the world. And I think that gives us a lot of leverage and opportunity.
Yeah, especially now with the power of the internet, we have no real excuse. So, why do you think traditional DEI efforts often fail in workplaces?
I think the number one thing I see, and it's what we used to talk about at the college where I worked, that it's performative. So much of it, people's, and I should say business owners in particular, or business leaders, they see the business case for it. And I'm not against talking about the business case because that's a persuasive argument that does get people on board.
Yes.
But you can't only have it be about that, right? I think that's where a lot of it comes in, is it becomes performative, right? Oh, we'll
Yeah.
just throw money at the problem and it'll go away. So
Exactly.
bringing a very expensive speaker in, okay, that's fine, and it might be kind of exciting to have a little bit of a celebrity in your workplace for the day and have a party, but then what happens after the party? It's like, right? It's kinda like when you get married, you have the big party, but now you gotta do all the hard work, right?
That is so true. That is absolutely true. Wow. So you have really found yourself in a space where everything that you went through in your life has led you to this point.
Yeah.
So, what does trauma informed conflict resolution look like in real terms?
So the way I do it anyway, and I know everybody has their own little spin on it depending on what kind of practitioner they are, but the way I do it is I talk to my clients about remembering that everybody's a human being and everybody's been through something, right? And everybody's dealing with something. So it's about bringing the compassion back into the conversation.
Mhm.
It's also recognizing some of the patterns that might be there, but without necessarily psychoanalyzing and catching ourselves on that, right? Because this is what our brains do, right? And that's the part of my training, is to recognize how my brain works, how other people's brains work, and how generally we're just trying to keep ourselves safe. And so a
Yes.
lot of times what happens is you'll have trauma survivors, which again, probably all of us have something, but some have
Yeah.
others that are triggered. So we can talk about who the who you might be. For example, if I'm in dispute with you and I'm in some sort of conflict with you, who you might be showing up for me as, like, depending on the situation, I might not even be seeing you anymore. It's often
Yes.
reminding me of something traumatic I went through, and it's about the amygdala getting triggered and being fearful. And
Mm,
I'm
mm.
not really at risk of you harming me. You're all the way across the world, right?
That's
And so
true.
it's like being able to make people feel safe again
Yeah.
so that they can be authentic. It's all about trust building, and sometimes that requires apology and forgiveness, and we have conversations like that in my world.
So, how do you bring empathy into legal and HR frameworks?
It's funny because I go, "How do I not bring it in?" I think that's the bigger question. It's because it's always there. You're dealing with human beings. It's never not there. And that's what I thought we would have learned during the pandemic, but it
Right.
seems like suddenly we've backpedaled a little bit. But I think it's recognizing that your whole self has always been coming to work, even though your employer may have told you that don't bring that in. That's personal. Don't bring that. It's always there. What are you doing? Oh, wait, I'm going to put this part of myself in the trunk and then I'll go into work. Like, that doesn't work that way, right?
Right. No.
And I think it's just acknowledging that. And it's
Yeah.
acknowledging that I'm constantly having to keep myself in check as well. And
Yes.
and that's the conversation that I have with leaders all the time, is that you are going to have responses, and that's okay because that's what makes you human.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That is so true.
recognizing it, right? It's about recognizing your triggers. Like, when I'm preparing witnesses or when I was doing a lot of trial work, there was always like, okay, recognize when you're getting a little, like, maybe you get shakes within you, where internally, where you feel like
Yeah.
your heart is pacing, your stomach gets turned, and that's the exact moment to take a breath, take a
Yeah.
sip of water. And that's what we would do in the courtroom. And so I said, well, this is the same kind of thing. Recognize when you're getting upset because the moment that you're getting up here, you start making less logical and powerful decisions, right?
Yes.
So my job is to always bring you back here so that you can take action and you can take productive action.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, once you are aware of how you are being, you can correct your course.
Right.
So, what advice would you give to leaders who are dealing with polarized teams?
I'm dealing a lot with that these days. So, so that is probably the primary issue that I'm dealing with. And I think the number one thing that I'll say to leaders is listen to the complaints and
Mm,
get an outside investigator whenever possible.
yes,
Because,
someone impartial.
right, exactly. Because one of the issues I see as a lawyer all the time is the lack of a fair and impartial investigation. People
Yes.
think they can be impartial, but
No,
I recently gave like 3 big tips on things that you should do a kind of self-check before you start an investigation, for example.
right.
And if I, for example, see your name on something, whichever side it might be on, and I already go, "Oh, I know her, so I know what this is about." I'm already not impartial, and I'm already a little bit handicapped
Mm,
in doing a fair and impartial investigation. And that's just smart, right? It's, yeah, I realize it might cost you a little bit to pay somebody, but I can tell you it will cost you a lot more if you get sued
you
or
don't.
you lose a good employee.
Yeah, you're constantly having to replace people, and
Yeah.
that, yeah, it's expensive to recruit. So
Yeah.
you're actually helping preempt people getting to that position. So, what role does forgiveness and apology play in the workplace?
Well, the first thing I'll say is on the apology, it's a complete apology that's necessary, right? It's not just, "Oh, I'm sorry," right? It's
Not superficial.
right? It's, "I'm sorry specifically for the an action," right? And then here's what I'm going to do to make sure that action doesn't occur again, that I don't engage in that again. And then you have to consistently do that for a while and give the other person time to trust you again,
Ah,
right? And
yeah.
then the forgiveness usually comes naturally. But
Okay.
when the apology is not complete, and the expectation is, I said the magic words and now it's all gone, right? That's that's where we end up with these re-traumatizations, right? Of what
Yes.
and this repeat behavior where ultimately someone will either retaliate against someone who complained, and you'll end up with a complaint that way, or
Yes.
you'll just see behavior that never gets wrangled in. You see no change. So for the change to occur, there has to be a change in the relationship, and it always comes back to trust.
Yeah. Rebuilding that trust can be a challenge.
Mhm.
So,
But
how,
people
say that again?
but people do it all the time. They even do it in marriages, right? After someone's cheated.
That is so true. So, how do companies be more proactive rather than reactive in conflict?
The first thing is to recognize that, there you go. Are you going up here? You got a complaint, right? And
Yeah.
it's so much about looking at how you're responding to it from the beginning. And the things that I see consistently that get employers in trouble, it's the, oh, here she goes again, or he goes again, or I don't have time for this, or right. It's all that. And I get it.
Yeah.
Working anywhere today is stressful, right? I totally get that. We've got more demands on us than ever. I totally understand that. But if you're unwilling to address the complaints,
Yes.
listen, as I like to say, listen for the hurt you can heal, right? Not, you don't have to heal. Like, I can't go back and heal anything in your past. I barely was able to do anything about my own, right? I had to come to that my own realizations around that. But recognizing, like, you have things within your organization that your employees are telling you are breaking down.
Yes.
The commitment, the loyalty, what you're trying to build. So you're not going to get that. Like, we think that we're just plug and play. Like, well, I hired the right person. I'm just going to plug them in and they're going to just go. But even a machine is going to break down. So I think,
Yeah.
right, I think it's so much about recognizing your initial response to when your employees are coming to you. Are you listening for something that you can fix, or are you dismissive? And
Okay.
I think it's that solutions focus that keeps us growing. And you see some of the best companies, that's what they're always doing is,
Yeah.
where can I improve? Not, oh gosh, I can't deal with this right
Here we
now.
go again. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Because you're dealing with humans. We are always going to come into different conflicts, and life is going to change. Even your best employees will leave at some point. So you have to be prepared for this
Mm.
ongoing change. And if you're not, then maybe you shouldn't be leading businesses.
And they say that the only constant in life is change.
Right.
But a lot of people want to keep things the way they are, but everything is evolving all the time.
Right.
So, my last two questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment.
Okay.
In the first one, I'm going to teleport you back, and we are going to go and have a conversation with the younger you, the young woman who was getting over trauma, who had her own stuff going on, just trying to navigate life and figure it out. If you could go back and give yourself 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be? What would you have wanted somebody to have told you at that time?
Wow. Probably the first thing is that I am loved and worthy. I think that's something that it took me a long time to understand, that even when you don't feel it, you have an expectation of it looking a certain way, that's all made up, right? So I think that's one of the first things is, like, learn that it might not look the way that you think. It might not be gifts and money and, whatever, like fancy trips from somebody that shows love, right? It's like really learning that. The other thing is probably that it's okay that you don't want what everybody's telling you you should want. Because I think a lot of us do that too. We follow somebody else's blueprint and we pursue certain things in life, certain careers, because it's supposed to give us more money or more power or more opportunity, more fame. And it's not really what we want. And so I wish I had taken a little bit more time to figure that out for myself. I could have saved myself decades of waste and hurt. And then I think the other part is that I'm stronger than I ever imagined, and that I will keep getting stronger if I follow that. I believe it's a Japanese proverb. And I was just talking about this yesterday, that I think it goes, fall down 6 times, get up 7, or something along those lines, and just keep getting up because you can't do it.
Oh, I love that. That's just absolutely beautiful. The last question is futuristic, and I'm going to teleport you into the future this time. And we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you. And she's sitting in her rocking chair. Maybe she's on a dance floor with science and technology. You could be on your feet doing your thing. But if we could teleport you into the future to go and have a conversation with this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
Well, the first thing I will tell you is that I will be in the nightclub because I have one of my dearest high school friends. We literally have on our phones, on our calendars, we have an appointment to go to a nightclub, assuming that we still have nightclubs then when we're 90. So I think I will say to her, ha, see, I told you you could do it. I told you were stronger than you thought you were, and here you are.
I love that. I absolutely love it. So you've actually scheduled that appointment. Oh, that is absolutely beautiful.
I don't know how well I'll be moving at that point, but I will be
You,
there.
I love it. Nance, thank you so much for coming online and inspiring our audience with your story today. Absolutely wonderful what you're doing. Keep it up. Your work is needed right now, especially in the United States with all of the things we're watching from a distance that's happening in the DEI world. You certainly have your work cut out for you.
Yeah, but it's important work and I love it.
Yeah. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. And thanks again for the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.